right, Montana has changed their tax laws for the better or worse. You're about to find out. Stick around. Hey guys, our real estate team gets calls, texts, and emails every single day from people just like you trying to learn more about North Idaho. If this is your first time on the channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button and tap the notification bell so you can stay up to date on all of our latest content. If you are thinking about making the move here, give us a holler. Doesn't matter if it's right now or 12 months from now. We would love to get that conversation started. All right, hey, we're not talking smack about Montana. Montana is a beautiful, great state filled with amazing people. However, there's some tax law changes that are coming up that you might want to know about. We'll jump in with some of them and save the best for last, just because that's how we like to keep you around. Truth be told. Okay, so income tax changes. This one's not really a big deal. Actually, this one, the income tax came down. Let me look at my handy-dandy paperwork here. Legislator passed House Bill 337 that reduces the top individual income tax rate from 5.9 to 5.4. That's a good thing, right?
Yeah.
People are paying less taxes.
Right. If you're reducing it by that margin where anytime you're going to reduce something, you're going to have to increase it on another side. And the way they went about it can affect a lot of people that are potentially looking at that as a destination spot or landing place, especially if it's your second home.
Oh,
that's
the big catch here. I guess that's the main part of what we're about to get into here. Let's talk about they just changed for primary residents. They just changed to a 3-tiered system, which I think is good for some and bad for others. So here it is. Here's the tiers. The first $400,000 of value on your property tax, the property tax goes to 0.76%. Next tier, so 400,000 up to 1.5 million, which is probably where a lot of people fall into. The tax rate goes to 1.1%. And here's maybe where they're trying to capture, I know Bozeman's I'm sure there's a lot of places in Montana, like Bozeman is one of them for sure, where they have these super rich that live outside of town. Any value over 1.5 million has gone to a 2.2% tax rate. That's going to be a lot.
Yeah, that's significant. Man, I'm so torn when it comes to this. I could see the logic that was being applied, right? Yeah. They want blue-collar families, like those lower-income families, to be able to have affordable housing and not pay as much taxation. Where they decided to go for that were people that were a little bit more affluent and tax the living and tax them in, as opposed to keeping it so they get to lower it on that side, which is going to be a larger part of the voting population. I refuse to pretend like that's not a consideration in this. That's going to be a larger number of people. So then it's going to go to the tax the rich, the tax the rich, the tax the rich. I can see where you came to that conclusion, but my issue is if I'm one of those people and I'm saying, wait a minute, how much burden do I put on the system and the infrastructure of which is paying the majority of those taxes? How much of that is coming from here? And what's the crime rate in that, right? We lived that. Generally, they're not causing a whole bunch of problems that are going to burden our justice system. And in general, kind of keep to themselves, spend money, buy nice stuff, go to grocery stores. They're not using a ton of it, and it's just a single household, so it's not this big burden on the infrastructure. And I think part of it is they're getting frustrated with the landscape of Montana changing. And sorry, but people are seeking individual freedom, and they want to be further out in the country. That's just the way we've gone. Because whether you blame that on the ability to telework, use internet to work from home at still high-paying jobs, whatever you want to blame that on. Maybe it's Yellowstone. Maybe Yellowstone's to blame.
I think Yellowstone's to blame for most things, yes.
100%. But that one's a tough one. I could play devil's advocate on both.
I can see both ways as well. Most people are going to be under that 1.5 million bracket. Most.
Right.
But, it doesn't take... I'm thinking from the Idaho side, okay? We're in Idaho real estate. We understand this game. We sell a fair amount of homes over 1.5 million, and they're normal people.
Yes.
Right? They're not some uber rich dude
No.
that flies in on a helicopter. They are, maybe they came from another state. They've got a pension. They owned a business. They did all the right things. Moved to this place. Now their home's over 1.5 million.
And they cashed out everything. And,
yes.
and a lot of them are generational. Like they're bringing kids over because they want to get them out of that Western. I'm going to shout out to a family from Cedro Willie that's finally making it over here.
Yes,
They're going to close
good.
at the end of this month. But
Good.
that's exactly who you're describing. Just worked their butts off their entire life. And they're cashing out everything in order to come over here and have that stead. Right? Like that's not the uber rich.
No, they're going to get kicked in the nuts now with a 2.2% tax rate over in Montana.
Right, but
that's going to drive people's decision-making process, right? A lot of people are looking Idaho, Montana.
Yeah.
Right? They want to be in the Northwest. And those two are the freest states in the Northwest.
Perception of that is
Right.
absolutely accurate. Idaho and Montana get compared all the time. And to me, working as a cop in Idaho, and I apologize to our state to the east, but there's no comparison.
No.
We just went over crime stats on the last podcast.
I happen to have it right here. 'Cause
Yeah, they
I knew
were
it was going to come up.
Oh yeah, but this is where I get a little bit frustrated. Let's talk about theoretically how you can reduce taxes or how you can reduce the burden. We just talked about budget with our previous podcast,
Yep.
the lady that was running for Spirit Lake mayor. But we're talking about budget. So how do you reduce the budget? How do you reduce the burden on some of those systems? You can reduce the number of people in jail. Jail is expensive. And I'm not talking about decriminalizing criminal behavior, but you need to start supporting them by way of not having any consequences for them.
All right.
Montana's weird, bro. Like a lot of people think that it's similar to Idaho and hold people accountable and, crime won't be tolerated and all that. They were doing book and release on felonies.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. When I went out there for...
You just don't expect that with Montana.
No, it's wild. I mean, literally, it's taking them longer to write the report than they actually spend in jail. They're like, oh, we don't have enough beds. We don't have enough. I get that. But if you let that slip and the word gets out, where are people going to go? If you're a tweaker living in Idaho, would you be better off being a tweaker in Idaho or Montana?
Yeah, obviously Montana, right?
Right. When you look at the freaking total crime stats, that's shocking to me.
Where's Montana at on the list?
Number 22.
22.
It's right behind New York, and it is worse per capita than Illinois. When you ask people about crime rates, Illinois is one of the first ones they bring
Yeah,
up.
it's got Chicago, man. Come
Yeah,
on.
you think the Cook
Right.
County, Chicago.
Yep.
And I know they fudge numbers a little bit, but damn, Montana sitting at 22. I never would have expected
I
that.
never would have expected that. Where's Idaho sitting?
Oh, 50.
Oh my goodness, look at
50. But, when I go back and I just think about, and I know it's always cop brain that comes back to how do you reduce the burden on your budget?
that. Right.
Well, have people that don't want to commit crimes in your state. That'd be a really effective way of doing that. And Montana toes that line because we joke about this sometimes, but you can be like so constitutionalist that you thwart any proactive policing measures. And Montana's almost there. They don't have plain view. They don't have plain smell, nothing. They don't follow the Carroll Doctrine. Anything that you see or view or smell inside of a car, you immediately need to write a search warrant on the car. That can impede your ability to conduct.
Oh yeah.
Right? So there are some things where I think they went that route. I am all about protecting people's constitutional rights. 100. And I hate the constitutionalists get thrown around like it's negative because I think you get mixed up with sovereign citizen stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm a big fan of constitutional principles and I want to protect people's constitutional rights. At the same time, you have to give cops the tools in order to do their job. And I think there's more effective means of doing it without impacting people that are trying to move to your state and spend money. These aren't going to be the burdens on your community.
Correct.
It's
Back
wild.
to the tax thing. Correct. Yes. Now, but I'm torn on this too, right? There is an uber rich segment of the population, and there's definitely the desire, even deep down in my heart, when I believe people should live however they want. But deep down in my heart, even I'm like, maybe you should pay a little more, bro. You've accumulated so much.
That's fair.
Right.
But
I can't fight that.
I mean, what's 1% of $500,000? So
$5,000.
$5,000, right?
Right.
So what's 1% of $5 million?
I'm not great.
So no, it's 50,000,
50,000,
right?
okay, yeah.
So if you're going to pay the 1% on your $5 million, it's still $50,000.
It's still a lot of money,
You're
right?
making up for the $10.5 million
But instead,
homes.
in this scenario, now they bumped it up to 2.2.
Right.
Dang.
That's a significant jump. And honestly, even at the 0.76, nearly 1%, that's a fair tax.
That's
right. Like
That's on the higher end of the Idaho
Yeah,
side?
yeah, because $3,000 is what you're looking at, a 0.76, roughly $3,000 on a $400,000 house.
Yeah.
That's more than Idaho.
Yeah.
Because you get a homeowner's exemption here. Homeowners exemptions we're going to get into with this too, because it got crazier. This isn't just for that. If you do not live in Montana for over 7 months, your taxes just doubled. If it is a second home for you, it just doubled. And I wouldn't have found out about this. Shout out to some folks that called me last week. They don't live in Montana permanently, but they bought a home last year. They're ready to sell it and bounce. They're like,
So this would apply to second homes and like an Airbnb or something like that?
yep.
Okay.
Significant tax jump. It's like 68%.
68%. That's the number I'm seeing on here.
Right.
That doesn't even sound real.
No. So you tried to make up for it by giving a little bit of a bump. But again, I still think it comes back to like tax or your voting base.
Yep.
There's a hell of a lot more people voting at 400,000 than there will be the ones voting at 1.5.
And I get that it's probably an effort to preserve the culture of Montana, right? I think it's risking slipping away to become a playground for the super rich.
Yes.
We've seen that in other cities, in other states. So I get where they're coming from. I just don't know. I think it's going to hurt them in some ways too.
Yeah. Because if you're going to drive all of those out, I don't
Right.
know if you're going to be able to backfill it.
Right.
Does that make sense? Like
Because
if you're gonna,
property values are still high.
Right.
I guess, over time they may come down if there becomes the surplus of inventory and then it's supply and demand.
Yes.
Sure. But I don't know.
I think in the interim, what you're going to have is you're probably going to have a drop in overall home value. There's going to be a lot on the market. It's going to be challenging to sell for what they bought it for previously. And I think you're going to lose a well-paying part, especially if those sit empty for a while. You could end up in a situation where you have less income from taxes because those people have left. And they're no longer.
The Montana Department of Revenue is projecting average homeowner tax bills will drop 18%. That's cool. While bills on second home short-term rentals could rise by 68%. That just boggles my mind.
Listen, and again, I'm not against Montana. It's beautiful, but I just think this is information that people that are looking at Idaho or Montana or just the local area. I mean, a lot of people are looking at other states, the Dakotas, whatever.
Right.
It's important to recognize when you have tax implications like this.
Yeah. How will this affect? Do you know how to put it in Do Not Disturb?
I'm doing it
How will this affect? You're a popular guy. How will this affect businesses? Right. You've got are businesses going to want to leave the state as well? I don't know what the tax burden will change on them, but business owners, right? And if they have a successful business and they have lots of money, maybe they are going to look elsewhere for living. And I think that this will potentially curb some of the influx if people get the information, which they may not in time. But it's basically just a redistribution of the tax burden. And I don't know if it's a good idea.
The long-term ramifications, what happens if people stop going there for their second homes? A lot of those businesses rely on them, and obviously they're higher purchasing power. When they come into town for that half-time a year, I don't know if that's going to impact, some of the destination and resort areas, stuff like that.
Right.
But, businesses, high-end furniture, jewelry, whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing they did their homework and they thought this was the best method for their particular voting population.
It should be interesting to kind of see what happens as this goes along. But we wanted to put this video out. It's going to be short, but it just was to get the information out there. If you're deciding between Idaho and Montana, it's something to pay attention to at the very least.
Yeah, just look up the article. There's a bunch. Montana Free Press did a pretty good article on it that breaks it down into like dummy terms for this guy.
Yeah.
But what was the name? What was the article they passed?
It was the House Bill 337. I believe is the one. Oh, no. So the tiered tax rate is House Bill 231 and Senate Bill 542. And this takes place this year, so 2025. So I'm guessing 2026 is when you'll see a lot of those changes.
Yeah, and it's overall 68%. I think it was tiered for those couple of years.
Yeah.
But it's a significant one. It nearly doubles your taxes. I mean, a lot of people are saving up. That's where I get frustrated sometimes when it comes down to, we need to tax a lot of these people saved and worked their entire life. Some of them foregoed having multiple kids or any kids in some cases. They've saved for this. They could have their, that's their lifestyle. They want to go spend time there and not burden the info. So I don't know. I could definitely see it both ways. And I agree with you. 1.5 million. My brain has suddenly changed to this.
Yeah.
That's not uber rich, man.
It's not.
No, and that's somebody that's saved up their whole life for this one thing, and then the government's going to come in and treat you like you're a resource to be exploited, and that you're leasing your land, right? Because that doesn't indicate home ownership.
No.
It doesn't indicate that you own property in Montana and you're respected as a Montana citizen. No, that's just like, hey, yeah, you're renting this from us, and rent's due, even though you paid for ownership. That's where I get so frustrated with burdening property taxes.
My question, and I don't know the answer to this, it's not in here, but what if you own a ranch in Montana and you've had it for generations, and the land value itself is well over $1.5 million?
How it's assessed. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if there's a any kind of like exemption for them. There may be. Maybe you can educate us if you know. Please drop a comment in there.
Washington doesn't have that. Where that slams families is when the owner or the main holder of property dies, passes away. Then automatically the state comes in and like reassessed that place that he bought on the lake that was $250,000 in the late 80s is now $7.5 million. You owe us taxes in this amount, and it's going to be an estate tax that's like 40%. Oh, dude, they treat it like it's a freaking lotto winnings. And there's families everywhere that lose their estates that way. They can't afford them anymore because the value went up, and there's been in their family for generations.
That pisses me off. You do all the right things, right?
Yes. And just because you didn't strike it rich enough to pay $3 million, you're going to lose your entire estate? Why? So the state that just burdened its citizens with $9 billion more in taxes can take even more? What are you going to get in return?
Wow.
Number 4 in the country for freaking crime rate? Like you're going to get your car broken into? Like, I hate it when states treat them like that. And I know I always bash Washington because, I mean, I live there.
It's easy.
Yeah. Well, yeah. No, but I live there. Like I said, my mom was a cop there for 26 years. Like, I hate that the people that get into power treat citizens like resources to be exploited. Nothing will infuriate me more, and this reeks of that a little bit.
It definitely does.
And I think there's just better ways of reducing your budget or, bettering that without taxing the impoverished either.
Right. I guess we'll just have to kind of wait and see how this shakes out. I'm curious. I don't know. Maybe smarter minds have figured it all out.
Yeah, please comment. I'm super curious.
Yeah.
It's God, as awesome as Montana is, man, there's some things over there that are a little funky.
Great place to visit.
Yeah, great place to visit. And then come back. Right.
It really is, though. We're not bashing Montana. We're just trying to provide information. Obviously, we live and work in Idaho. We sell homes in Idaho, and so we are biased. I get that.
Yeah.
This is definitely a sales pitch. Sorry.
Yeah, but those are the first people that have called me and said, we're selling our home in Montana. We want to move to Idaho.
I have not heard that yet. We've heard it from many other states, typically blue states. But Montana, that's going to be a shocker if we start getting an influx of people from Montana.
Well, yeah, but you're going to get second home buyers because you come to Idaho, you don't have that same tax burden. You can't use the homeowners exemption, which just means that first $250,000 is taxed less or gone. I think you get that $250,000 exemption towards your home value, right? So they can't get that, but that's it.
125.
I thought it was 250.
No.
Oh, somebody's going to educate us on homeowners.
Fix it. But, so right. They wouldn't be able to use that, but they still wouldn't get hit with a 2.2%.
No, not this
tax burden.
This is, when you're doubling at 68%, that's telling them to leave the state. Like, that's telling them that, hey, we no longer want what the money that you bring here.
And I mean, how many people do we know here that have worked really hard and then bought a second home to Airbnb or rent out?
Right.
They're not uber rich people.
Yeah,
they're doing all the right stuff.
They're going to crush them.
They're going to crush them.
Montanans that saved up that money. Yeah. Exactly right. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, did all the right things.
That's not some company that's overseas that's managing in most cases.
Right?
Yeah. But a lot of people are using that as a means of developing their wealth.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, I'm looking at that home like a separate bank account, and I'm going to use that. And now how much does something like this affect their long-term prospectus, right?
Right.
Like ChatGPT is going to eat that up when it comes down to what you're actually going to make.
Yeah.
So, yeah, crazy. But I just want you guys to have the information. We're not trying to, I know that sounded like we were bashing it. Just for those people impacted by it, it sucks.
It sucks. Yeah. No, we love Montana. No hard feelings, guys. Don't jump us.
No.
All right. Well, there's the information. I hope it was useful. Please drop some comments. Love to hear you guys' thoughts on all of this.
Yeah.
And we will catch you on the next video.